Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for us to focus on the big story on India tonight that's coming in from the currency markets that's unfolding. And the big question that we are asking via the story is that will the dollar continue to lose strength while the US dollar index, which gauges the greenback strength against a basket of 6 currencies, that was trading up marginally only by 0.06% at slightly over 97. It's showing signs of life, pulling back from its 3-year lows. This after weeks of sustained pressure from rate cut expectations and global economic shifts. Now the greenback is staging a modest recovery. While the bounce back offers temporary relief, currency strategists, they remain cautious. They've cited macroeconomic headwinds. Overall, the index has been down by 10% in just this year alone. And it's registered, like I said, its 3-year low this year itself. Meanwhile, on the back of that, the rupee has gained 13 paise to reach slightly over 85 against the US dollar in early trade today, and that amidst hopes of an end to hostilities between Israel and Iran and a strong opening in domestic equity markets. So the question we're asking, what does this really mean for your money? A stronger dollar can, after all, impact everything from commodity prices to overseas investments. And most importantly, does the rupee have further room to strengthen given that the dollar could weaken further? While we break down all of this and what could this really mean for investors, importers and everyday consumers in just a moment, let's get Mr. Jamal Mecklai, who's the Managing Director of Mecklai Financial Services, on the show. He's joining us live on the broadcast. Thank you very much, Mr. Mecklai, for joining us here.
Hi there. Hello.
So, Mr. Mecklai, the dollar index has moved up only slightly, but trends show that it's been its weakest this year since past 3 years. So are markets interpreting the dollar correction as a sign of weakness in US economic dominance, or is this reaction essentially against an already overvalued dollar?
See, my belief is that the dollar is going to weaken a lot more, but not tomorrow, right? I mean, you can never forecast when things happen. But if you really look at fundamentals, right? I mean, at some point, fundamentals have to come into play, right? Now, the GDP per capita of Mississippi, which is the poorest state in America, is $53,000. The GDP per capita of Italy, which is one of the loveliest countries in the world, is $40,000. Now, that's only because of the exchange rate, right? And second point is Master Trump. I don't want to say what I really think of him. He's trying to, get people to invest in the U.S. Nobody's going to invest when it's so expensive. America is just very, very expensive, right? As a very wealthy family who lives in Switzerland, they go there, they find it very expensive. The reality is the dollar is much too strong. It is going to get weaker. There is no question in my mind. But whether it will, how much it will fall tomorrow, whether it may correct as you're suggesting tomorrow, I don't know. If you look at the charts, it's very close to a breakout on the downside. But again, I mean, it may take maybe a year and a half. But I think today the dollar index, as you said, is about 90, it touched 97. It's bounced back a little. I think it's going to fall to 80. But I think it will take some time to get there. Now, what the impact of that will be on the rupee? Obviously, if the dollar does weaken that much, or even weakens halfway that much, the rupee should see some strength. RBI is, of course, the sort of the balancing factor. But there's a limit to what they can do if the dollar does really weaken that much.
Right.
And again, notice I use the word very frequently, if. This is the market. And nobody, not even me, supposedly the guru of FX, knows what's really going to happen.
Sir, but you have given us some indication as to where the dollar is headed. You've also spoken about the rupee, and we're going to be touching upon that in just a short bit from now. But let's first address a whole host of questions that we have pertaining to the dollar. When you say that there is further downside that's pending as far as the dollar is concerned, at least for over a year, but Barclays analysts, they say that the dollar could eventually stabilize since data from the US that points to more economic resilience that is expected. So I want to ask you, how significant is this correction that you're seeing in the dollar as compared to historical trends? Sir, if you could please unmute yourself. Mr. Mecklai, if you could please unmute yourself.
Sorry. I said there's no question in my mind that it's going down. It's right now sort of protected by a support line, but it's fairly, see, let's also understand that Trump is creating so much uncertainty that nothing is going to move very dramatically right now, right? So I think it will be a gradual decline, always bounce backs. I mean, that's how markets work. But I'm saying it is going down. And I very seldom make such a firm commitment.
Right. Mr. Mecklai, then what will be the impact on inflation, consumer incomes and purchasing power due to a persistently weaker dollar? And what have historical trends suggested so far as the dollar movement, whenever it starts going down due to policy uncertainty? What does it really tell you about trends that you are going to see further in the movement of the dollar?
See, if the dollar weakens, obviously inflation will rise, right? And the Fed will find it very difficult, if not impossible, to cut rates. So growth will slow down, right? Now, if rates remain high, I mean, that is contra to the dollar weakening, correct? Which is why I say you're going to see volatility. And it's going to work its way down. But like I said, how much is it going to fall tomorrow? Is it going to fall tomorrow? Nobody knows that. You just have to get a sense, a feeling of what's happening. As I explained to you earlier, the real key is the fact that America is much too expensive for anybody to invest there. And since that is what Mr. Trump is pushing for, everything he's doing is actually aiming the dollar lower. So it's going to get lower. Inflation is going to remain difficult, right? So interest rates are going to stay steady, if not even possibly rise. And growth will slow down in the US.
Right. So growth is expected to slow down in the US on the back of a whole host of factors that might be impacting that move. But sir, what's your sense on where the FIIs are headed with respect to emerging markets, given the fact that you are only stating that US valuations and, of course, overall valuations are a bit high and it's over expensive. So where do you see that move of FIIs to happen?
Sorry. Clearly, if the US gets a little rocky, there will be more money coming our way. India is in a sweet spot, right? But again, as long as Trump is around, you're not going to see any huge trends because he's very powerful, being the boss of America, and anything he does could change things. So people are going to be cautious. So you're not going to see huge amounts of money coming in. You will see, I think, money coming into India, but not huge amounts. The real issue, though, in India is FDI. As you see, we're not getting direct investment, right? Which is really what we want. Now, it's not that India is too expensive like the US, but what it is we need to change our processes more. I mean, we keep talking about effective, not deregulation, but effective making business easier, right? And the politics, of course, remains the politics. So that is what's slowing us down. But generally, I would say India is in a good place. The rupee, well, it'll bounce around. I think I'm pretty sure we will see the low of 88 again. But it will not stay there, right? So broadly, I would say over the next 12 months, I'd see the average value being perhaps north of 86, 85, more or less where it is today. It may strengthen a little also, but you got to be careful because we will see lows as well.
Right, and that strengthening of the rupee, as you are suggesting or hinting at, will remain only for a very short period of time. But overall, the band in which the rupee is going to perform or stay is between 85 to 86. But Mr. Mecklai, when we talk about the Fed and the decision that it's going to take, of course, there is a lot of pressure from Donald Trump, and of course, it's his administration as well. There's almost every day that the Fed chairman is, of course, called names, or he's castigated, he's criticized on the fact that he's not cutting rates sooner than expected. What do you anticipate the Fed is going to do, and what steps that you expect the United States to take to restrict this fall in the dollar index?
I don't think they're particularly worried about the fall of the dollar index. Why should they be, right? If the dollar is weaker, it becomes easier for people to invest there, right? And the Fed is, so far at least, the Fed is not going to bend. If the Fed does bend because of Trump's madness, then you could see some real serious issues. There are other serious issues in the US, which is the debt, right? So, I mean, there are a lot of people, and I'm sure you've read, who think that, things could really fall apart, the dollar could really fall. I'm speaking of it really falling as well, but I'm saying everything is going to be sort of muted because of the fact that Trump could wake up one morning and do something which turns all your positions negative. So people are going to be nervous about taking very deep positions. But, I come back to a steady decline in the dollar index. Let me change that. A steady but volatile decline in the dollar index.
A volatile decline is essentially what you're suggesting. So when you talk about a volatile decline, a steady and volatile decline, what are the levels that you're essentially hinting at?
Darling, I don't know. You should know this by now. The truth is, nobody knows.
It's very difficult to predict, but if you could give us a band.
Well, the band is it's going to go from 80 to 95, which is useless band, right? Because I don't know. And nobody knows. Anybody gives you a band is talking through their hat, right? And they're only talking because you say, please tell me your rate. Nobody knows. It's the market.
Absolutely.
Man.
Given
How
the
would
fact.
anybody know the market?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, we're very near to that timeline that Donald Trump gave, that relief window of 90 days on tariffs. That also ends on July the 9th. So it remains to be seen whether Donald Trump is going to extend it further, the deadline, or how will these deals really shape up. And that's going to be a protracted one as well, given the fact that there are several tariff lines. And India, for instance, has over 17,000 tariff lines, and it's not going to be very easy to strike a deal in just before July the 9th. So that's another story that's playing out. But sir, how sustainable are the current equity markets and its strength if the dollar continues to weaken?
See, in fact, this is not about the dollar, but it's not only July 9th, it's July 4th, when Trump's big, beautiful bill is supposed to be passed. Now, if the big, beautiful bill is passed, there's going to be, the US government deficit is going to get out of whack, and markets are going to revolt. So too, for July 9th, markets just don't know what's going on. But generally, I feel equities are at a bad place globally, right? India is privileged because we are India right now and we're in a good place. But if there is a major fallout in global equities, we're going to suffer as well. And if that happens, again, volatility will increase. My sense, as I said, is the dollar index will go down, but it'll go down in a volatile way. In other words, it may fall to, let us say, through 87, then go back to 89, fall to 85, go up to 90. It's tough. It's a difficult time to be trying to make plans. It's a good time if you're a very smart trader.
Absolutely, sir. And that's also, that volatility is also being reflected on the markets as well. We do not only have policy uncertainty in the United States, but of course, two wars that are brewing. So definitely a very volatile period. And you stated that this volatility with respect to the dollar movement is going to persist. Thank you very much once again for joining us on this broadcast on India Tonight.